Hello, everyone. This is Warhawk Beyond 2040, and welcome to another edition of the Batwoman Season 2 review series. And today I am going to be talking about episode 11, Arrive Alive, which I have just finished watching earlier today. And this episode, in my opinion, was really good and a great follow up to the previous episode. And as we've seen in the previous episode, Jacob has now become addicted to snakebite, and as a result of that, he has been experiencing lots of hallucinations, and in this episode, we see that the snake bite is starting to make him become more and more aggressive. And we've seen Sophie butt heads with Batwoman for a few episodes now, and that comes to a head in a very interesting way, especially with the little twist at the end, which I am going to get into momentarily. But as I said, this episode was really good, and it's good to see that it's finally starting to find its footing, because I have noticed ever since this show started, it's almost like they don't know what they want the show to be. It's like they're going around different places and it doesn't feel like they've quite got off the ground yet. But now that we're in season 2 and we're in the halfway mark, we're now up to episode 11. It's good to see that the show has finally found its place and a good balance. And I think in a way, kind of semi-rebooting the show, or as we like to call it, a soft reboot, I think has helped the show out a lot, because everything that was familiar and old before now feels fresh and brand new, and it really shows. And this episode, as I said, was very, very good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in episode 12. So with that all said, let's get right into it. Let's talk about episode 11, Arrival Alive. So this episode picks up where we left off at the end of the last one, where we saw Angelic was kidnapped, and we see in the beginning of this episode the False Face Society have stolen medical supplies with a series of getaway drivers. Meanwhile, Black Mask tortures Angelic with the corrosive doses of snakebite that he and the False Face Society have, until she eventually agrees to recreate Ocean's version of the drug. Sophie updates Ryan on Angelic's kidnapping and tells her not to intervene. Luke and Ryan realise that the False Face Society is realistically going to steal Scarecrow's fear toxin, and Ryan vows to track it down. Ryan does stop one of the getaway drivers, and it ends up being Sophie, who is undercover and who blames Batwoman for ruining the mission. Now, these two have been butting heads for quite a few episodes, but that's all going to come to a head in a big way. Sophie goes back to the Crows, where Jacob demotes her and promotes Russell Taravov, another Crows agent. Sophie goes to Ryan and updates her on the situation, and Ryan decides to go undercover as the False Face's newest getaway driver. Sophie reluctantly agrees and gets Mary to lend them her car, as long as Ryan promises to study so she can successfully fool the False Face in her interview. Sophie gets Luke to establish Ryan's fake ID, and Luke and Ryan pretend that they don't know each other. When Sophie leaves the room, Luke gives Ryan more tech, including comms and an AI to help her drive better, because as we all know, Ryan Wilder so far doesn't really know how to drive the Batmobile yet. Ryan goes to the interview and manages to win over the False Face agents, who give her a job that night. We then see Ryan hooks up the AI to Mary's car, and Luke drives while Ryan puts a track on the fear toxin. Things get complicated when Crow's agents try to shoot at the car, but otherwise the plan goes off without a hitch, and the fear toxin is put in a trunk for Mr. Bloom Florist, a reference to one of the Batman villains called the Fluorescence Man. Ryan returns back to her apartment, but she and Luke realise that Sophie left to track down Black Mask's location and confronts him directly. Batwoman sweeps in and fights Black Mask, and both she and Sophie get the upper hand to fight him. When they ask him where Angelic is, he reveals a live feed of her being held hostage, and that his False Face agents will kill her if they don't let him walk free. They let him walk free, and he goes back to Angelic, who has concocted a new strain of snakebite, but it didn't do it perfectly because Ocean didn't give her the full technique. Angelic then vows to help him track down Ocean. Later, Sophie inspects Mary's car and finds the Bat-Team tech that Ryan and Luke placed in there. When she listens back to the audio on the tech, she realizes Ryan is Batwoman, which is the ending, by the way. Meanwhile, Tararoff inspects this scene of Sophie and Ryan's fight against cyanosis and gets a blood sample. Alice ambushes Enigma at one of the therapy appointments, asking her to help erase the memories that she has of Kate. Enigma argues that Kate is actually Alice's moral compass and that erasing her would completely change her personality, but that she could do it if Alice goes inside her psyche and confronts Kate directly. Alice agrees to do that, and she mentally tracks back to the car ride with Kate where they were when they were kids. Alice argues that she never really loved Kate and that she was born evil, but young Kate and Ocean, who spontaneously also shows up, both disagree, and Alice snaps out of the vision. Enigma tries to argue that Alice isn't a complete psychopath, and Alice gets put back into a vision where Ocean confronts her about killing him, but she gets snapped out of it when the actual Ocean shows up in the real world and explains how Sophia was able to fake his death in Coriana. Ocean confronts Alice and then they briefly fight before Enigma says a trigger word that gets them both to recover their repressed memories. Later, Ocean reveals that Sophia sent him back to Gotham to track down the remaining desert rose plant, the one that Batwoman has. And that pretty much wraps up episode 11 and my review. Overall, very good episode. Really enjoyed this one a lot. The idea of Sophie now knowing that Batwoman is Ryan Wilder is an interesting one, and the way she found out I thought was, how shall I put it, a bit funny, but at the same time a bit lazy, because, you know, I thought could have been a little bit more dramatic. Maybe they could have done the reveal maybe a bit later on, but it's going to be interesting to know what Sophie is going to do with this information now that she knows the truth. Maybe she might join Luke and Ryan and Mary, but time will tell, really. But, you know, the fear toxin being referenced, I'm hoping we'll get to see Scarecrow, but time will tell, really. It looks like they might be setting up some sort of redemption story arc for Alice, because she still wants to be evil, but you can see that she's leaning towards being good again, so we'll just have to wait and see, really. But by and large, this was a really good episode, and I'm really looking forward to episode 12. So, with that all said, I'm going to wrap this up now. What did you think of episode 11? Did you enjoy it? What are your thoughts on Sophie now learning the truth about Ryan Wilder being Batwoman? Do you think she will expose her, or do you think she might come forward and maybe help her out? And also, what about Alice going into her conscious and seeing Kate as a child? What did you think of that scene? And also, do you think Alice could be redeemed and actually become a good person? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will be back next time for another edition of the Batwoman Season 2 review series, where I'll be talking about episode 12. So until next time, take care everybody, and stay safe, and once again, thanks for listening.